right? When we rehab those homes, make them something that someone else wants to move into, put jobs on those thoroughfares, then guess what? Somebody buys that house. And that raises the property value in all of the people's homes around it. It's not about building or knocking down, and building anew. It's about preserving the integrity of the community just the way it is, with talented, young, and senior, professional people, and those who aren't. Because we all care about our community.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, Reverend Dunn, you are offering an opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal. Do you want you to take that, or are you going to...
Well, I just...
Thank you. I don't really have to rebuttal because most concur that there's a twofold responsibility, and that responsibility does rest and lie with the homeowners. And the commissioner, or the district commissioner, needs to work with the homeowners and with the persons in code enforcement in the city of Miami. We did that before, and it is successful. We were able to get people out here on a Saturday to help clean up the alleyways. We were able to go to Buena Vista East and help them with their signage. So you can get what you need if you can empower, and that's why I want to encourage homeowners associations, because that's where the strength lies. If you put pressure on the commissioner then can put pressure on those bureaucrats for the city of Miami, and we can have a better community.
All right, before we actually ask the fourth question from Florida Majority, I just want to let you guys know we're last call for all questions from the audience. You can give them to Danilo or Rebecca. If you have a question, just hold your hand, hold your card up, so we can get those. Now, again, we're only going to take 3 from the audience, so they're going to, go throughout these questions, kind of vet them out, and kind of see what's going to be the hot topic issues we're going to bring to the table to give you guys a chance to bring to the candidates. And before we bring up this next question, I'm actually going to invite one of the members from Florida Majority up, because this was a little more personal to the organization. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mako, is that right? Shamarko. Shamako. All right, got it right.
How y'all doing this morning?
Take your time.
So I'm with an organization known as Power U. We, the youth, the Power Youth Center for Social Change, are working to get restorative justice in our schools in order to address the criminalization of Black and Latino young people. So my question is, will you endorse implementation of restorative justice in Miami-Dade public schools? And if you are unfamiliar with restorative justice, will you, along with your staff, attend a restorative justice training facilitated by Power Youth Center for Social Change?
And we're starting with Ms. Carter on this last question.
Shamarko, right? Shamarko. Thank you. Now that is one question that I do know about. For 5 years, I served on the State Advisory Group for Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. And one of the things that I brought to the state as a result, when I was the president of the State Advisory Group, was restorative justice. Because I really feel that at that time, the zero tolerance issue was major. And more kids were being dismissed from schools, and the rate of children being arrested for things that when I was a kid, you didn't get arrested for. You went to the principal's office and you got a, and then you went back to class and behaved. But the schools moved toward a zero tolerance, and one of the things that we did was to put in place what's called restorative justice. And we used restorative justice for all grants that we funded during the time that I was with the State Advisory Group. And of course, I would be more than willing to find ways not only to fund, but to also implement restorative justice not only in schools, but in all projects in Miami-Dade, especially prevention, because it really helps both the victims of whatever the crime is, and it helps the young people in terms of leadership development, and an understanding and empathy for what they've done. There you go.
Just going back to a little bit about my history, I've worked in a halfway house for juveniles. At FAMU, I was part of the Young Black College Explorers program with so-called at-risk youth. I worked on the 7th floor, when the juvenile floor at one point. So I'm very familiar with the criminalization of juveniles, very familiar. And I can see what happens. We have, in the state of Florida, we have an industry called the private prison industry. And this private prison industry has made billions of dollars off the backs of young black and young Hispanic males. And in fact, they've made so much money they're trading on Wall Street. This is a problem. Of course, I will endorse, I will work with Power U or whomever to make sure that we address the issue of criminalization of young people. I work with young people every day at Miami-Jackson. I talked to a young man who, his mom really didn't care about him. His brothers, all his brothers been in the criminal justice system. It is something that is a cycle. And he came to me after messing around in the classroom, after I gave him my little speech, and he said, you know, Dr. Malone, I heard what you said about helping kids. And we talked. I'm gonna provide an opportunity for this guy. We're gonna break the cycle. He will not be in the criminal justice system anymore. This is the kind of impact that we need to have with our young people in this community. Thank you.
I work in restorative justice every single day of my life. And if you don't understand what restorative justice means, I'll better explain it for you. Restorative justice is a process where the victim and the offender and also the community come together and they address the needs of all parties involved. So it's not just punishing the offender, because that's what the criminal justice system has turned into. You see, in the juvenile department, they talk about rehabilitating that person. But the rehabilitation process is not necessarily restorative justice. So what I do is that I always make sure that the people that had crimes committed against them and the young people in the juvenile system especially all come together at one time. I make them understand, and I've done it with Miami Northwestern Senior High School, Miami Edison. I've done it with all these different schools where they all come together and understand that the goal is for this person to become a productive citizen in this community. That's the goal. Because when they started punishing our young people for crimes that aren't really crimes, what they were really doing is hurting our community. See, they wanted to reduce the statewide opportunity for them to vote when they graduated. They wanted to criminalize them. That's what they really wanted to do. So what we have to now understand is that this is a systematic process that they're going through to hurt us as people. And we have to take a stand against it, and that's what I do every single day in this community. Thank you.
One of the things that I see often as a pastor, there have been many young men who have been criminalized by this system that I've personally gone to the jail to represent. There have been many young men who were going to be direct file. And direct file means that that's because they were charged as an adult, and that kind of wipes them out. But we've been able to, in a couple of situations, intercede and be able to work towards giving them a second chance by simply interceding on their behalf. Now, in terms of the question as it relates to the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, there is what they call now citations that they give. So the Miami-Dade County School Board has already moved in this direction. They have stopped the criminalization to some extent where citations are given instead of just booking somebody and starting a criminal record, which creates a, kind of a domino effect. And you find many young people who are unable, after they get that first charge or that first conviction, and then it's a domino effect. So the school board has already, Miami-Dade County School Board has already gone to what they call civil citations, or citations rather. So I would push toward making sure that instead of just throwing the book at our young people, we need to give them citations.
Thank you, Representative. Carter, your rebuttal?
I don't have a rebuttal necessarily, but what I do want to say is that, you know, I think I've worked with Power U and the young people on the prison to cradle pipeline. And a part of what I want you to know is that there are ways for all of us to get out of anything. I mean, I believe in, we all believe in a God of second chances and third chances, and how many chances all of us have had. So I think that a part of what we have to begin to understand is that just like we got second chances and third and fourth and 18 chances, we need to figure out a way to build programs and services that give our young people that same opportunity.
Okay, folks, so now we're moving into the next portion of our forum, in which we're giving a chance to hear from the audience. Now, we got plenty of questions in. For those of you that don't get your question heard, I want to let you know, one, we can only take 3. Let's just put it out there for the record. But a lot of the questions that were asked were already in the candidate response form that was sent out before the different candidates got here today. So the folks at Florida Majority is, what they're going to do is post these questions up on the Facebook page.
Yes,
right?
we're going to post, we asked the candidates 11 questions that they all answered. Some of the questions that are not going to be addressed from the audience have been already on our questionnaire. And we're going to post those and make them available on the Facebook page. So like us at Florida New Majority on Facebook, and you'll be able to see all the responses.
What Danilo said. All right. So we're going to actually do these next 3 questions. These are all from the audience, and we're going to start again from my right, your left, with Dr. Robert Malone, and we're going to go ahead and get this part underway. So this question coming from the audience is, what is your plan of action to promote or improve economic opportunities in our area, specifically 7th Avenue? Which kind of ties into a question that we already asked earlier, but we're asking for more details. So we're looking at how you're going to build up businesses, money, jobs in the 7th Avenue corridor.
With regard to building up 7th Avenue, I guess for decades we've been talking about building up 7th Avenue and 22nd Avenue and 27th Avenue. I mean, for decades, and Overtown and Liberty City, for decades. But I think what needs to happen right now is that we need to make the areas safe for small business. 2 weeks ago, there was a gentleman at a convenience store that was robbed. It was his 3rd time being robbed. And he had gun to his head. He was interviewed by the reporter. The reporter asked him, you know, what's going on basically? How do you feel? He said, I do not feel safe inside my store or outside my store. And when people who want to invest in this community hear that kind of talk, the idea of so-called economic development is just a dream. We have to work with law enforcement to make the areas the areas in Liberty City and Overtown, some of the more poverty-stricken areas, more crime-ridden areas, we have to make them safe. And you know, it sort of was a paradox, because the crime has to change, but it's great land to be on. You're 5 minutes off of I-95. You can build a business here and be successful. If you have a business in Coral Gables, they can be here in 5 minutes. It needs to be safe first before we do anything. Thank you.
I think you're enjoying it.
Let's talk about vision. When I think about 7th Avenue, my vision for it is great. You see, because last year when I ran for county commissioner, I said 7th Avenue needs to have some life to it. So that dirt floor business that sits on 7th Avenue, 62nd Street, I made that my campaign office. We knocked down the walls, we improved the floor. We made it so much so that right after us, They got a contract on that business to put a check cashing store there because people saw that vision. When you think about what's happening on 7th Avenue, the vision has already started. The improvements on the 7th Avenue business on the facade, Chantel's Lounge, small black business, go and eat there. When you think about the hairdresser store, the hairdressing shop right across the street, facade improvement. When you think about the daycare place, facade improvement. So what that means is now people are attracted to that area. So what do we need to do? Well, no more bus depots, right? No more using our commercial thoroughfares to put residential housing. No. Let's put businesses there. So when I think about 7th Avenue, I see a place where businesses are the most important part of that area. And instead of having the businesses, when you look on 62nd Street and 7th Avenue, when you head south on 7th Avenue, instead of those businesses all being shut down, we see them with people inside them working because our government gave them incentives to invest there. We made it easier for them to renovate the properties. We made it easier for them to give jobs to our community. That's the type of vision that I see for 7th Avenue. Thank you.
My mind immediately goes back to the Shell City site. If any of you have been in Miami long enough, you remember how vibrant Shell City was, how many jobs it provided, how many activities it provided, not just in terms of economic development, but it was a place where families could go, where they could shop. What I envision for 7th Avenue is doing something similar that happened on 62nd Street and in the Liberty City, shops of Liberty City. If you see, you have the McDonald's, you have the grocery store there, you have the Wingstop and all of that. You have the different small shops that are beginning, and it's thriving. Jobs are created. It's an area where people want to come. You can do a one-stop shop. Something like that has to be created on 7th Avenue. And there may be a need to create some type of anchor store that can bring other stores in. So you need an anchor. You need an anchor store that can bring. Midtown is a prime example. Now, we don't have the kind of land that Midtown has, but that's the kind of vision it's going to require. You need an anchor or some anchor stores that will then help feed the smaller mom and pop stores and help them to develop and grow. That's what I would do for 7th Avenue.
And Ms. Collier.
You know, I'm not going to tell you to close your eyes, but I want you to just think for a minute. I want you to look, as you're on 7th Avenue, you know how that when you come across the expressway, and you can see 7th Avenue so beautifully from that location. And it's almost like that area is like a gateway. That's around 41st Street and 7th Ave as you come across and you can see the avenue. And you look at it and you think, wow, this could be amazing. But you know what we've got to do first for 7th Avenue? If we're going to have any of the things that we want on 7th Avenue, we got to do something with the infrastructure. The pipes that are under the ground in 7th Avenue, I'm not going to say they're older than me because that probably isn't true, but they are old. Those are still the old galvanized pipes and plumbing, and without us doing something for underneath, we can't build on top. So, I believe we got to do something with the infrastructure and then begin to know that the dream and the vision that we can have for this gateway into Model City, Liberty City, is there. Because I believe that it starts with building the infrastructure. It starts with keeping the community safe and clean. It starts with a vision that I have.
But let's be clear, you know, we have to work with the county with the water and sewage to address that. But let's also address something that's been in the news. We cannot continue to be building these low-income only housing, setting people off in the area where commercial buildings. People who have average incomes of $18,000, in Liberty City and $11,000 in Overtown with no disposable income. It does not provide an opportunity for you to feed the business at all. At all. And and there seems to be this fascination with building these high towers and warehousing poor people. We cannot continue to do that because business people want to make money. In order for them, and want to be safe. In order for them to make money, they have to have some people that come in with disposable income. And also, they have to feel safe. I think that's going to change 7th Avenue and 22nd Avenue and 27th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malone. All right, so moving on to our next question, we're going to start with Mr. Keon Hardman. So this question is also from the audience, and it says, if elected as Commissioner of District 5, how will you deal with complaints about police brutality and excessive force within our community?
To address that, the thing I'll do first is tell you what I won't do, right? Like some commissioners have done in the past. I won't jump in front of the camera, not knowing any of the facts about what happened on that case. I won't run and scream and saying, stop killing black people, stop killing black people, when you don't know if that officer, that guy tried to kill that officer. I won't do that. What I would do is, I would demand that the processes that are needed to investigate fully crimes that are occurring, if it is police brutality or not, are followed. I would demand, and this is a legal process, you all, I would demand that if there is needed to be a Department of Justice investigation, that we do it. We advocate for that, right? Because that's what we need. We don't need any more jumping up and down, screaming and hollering because someone passed away. No, that's not what we need. We need the killings to stop. But to address it, the first thing you do is not scream and holler, but you meet. You meet as a commission. You get rid of the police chief, right? That was done once before. But ask yourself, up to what murder did it take for it to be done? Did it take 8 killings? Did it take 9 killings? Right? We need to know what processes those police officers are going to be trained with from day one. How are you going to hire a police chief and don't know the process to which he's supposed to use excessive, or he uses force? Come on now. We have to stop using our hindsight to get some votes and use our foresight to make sure that our community is safe.
Let me school us on how the process goes. The mayor recommends to the manager. See, that's why you have to have experience. Who the city police chief is going to be. And then the city commissioners either affirm or disagree with how that's done. I was not on the dais when Chief Exposito was hired. As a matter of fact, we didn't have no representative on the dais at that time. But when Chief Exposito, and I want each of you to be honest, you saw Richard Dunn. You saw Richard Dunn because he cared. You saw Richard Dunn because he's a fighter. You saw Richard Dunn who forced and worked with Congresswoman Frederica Wilson to call in the Department of Justice, who agreed with Richard Dunn that the police was excessive and overzealous in their policies. And so that's why Police Chief Exposito, of course, along with insubordination, that's why he was fired. But Richard Dunn stood by himself and stood with the people, and that's why Miss Sheila McNeil, who lost her son. See, we're not playing games here. Anybody can talk politics, but when you actually have to walk the walk, when she said, I will support Richard Dunn because he proved that he cared. And that's one of my greatest endorsements, having the endorsement of Miss Sheila McNeil in Overtown. Now, there are some shootings that need to be addressed, that need to be investigated, but Richard Dunn was fighting the ones where there were no weapons involved, because I know the difference.
All right. You know, talking about police brutality, you know, that's one of our hot button issues, ain't it? Make us all just jump up and down and do all kinds of stuff and get crazy about it. But you know what? At one time in the city of Miami was sued every other month for beating up and killing, City of Miami Police, for beating up and killing people, women, men with mental health issues. At one point, the city was sued I think they paid out close to $30 million just in lawsuits for mental health. But you know what the city did? They tried to get smart. They figured it out that this is dumb, what we're doing. And you know what? The city can get smart again. The City of Miami Police Department can get smart again. Because what the police need to do is really learn about how you deal with people who live in minority communities. And I've said this before. You cannot police every community the same way. Amen. We have to figure out how to do it so that it makes sense for us. We don't want to live in police states. We want to live in communities where we're protected, where we protect each other, where we're cared for, and where we feel safe and clean.
Look, I think I'm going to be kind of quick with this. As commissioner, I will work with the police chief, the mayor, the state attorney's office, and address the police brutality. I think we need to have an honest conversation behind closed doors. I agree somewhat with Attorney Hardiman. I think we need to conduct ourselves in such a way that we go behind closed doors and we talk to individuals. What we don't want to have happen is that we divide communities. And I think that's what's been going on for the last couple of years. Every community is important. We need to address it. And if there's a police brutality incident on my watch, believe me, I will engage all the people, the community, the powers that be, to make sure that we don't have that type of situation. But let me also add this. When we have a young man who's committing crimes and got an AK-47 in his trunk, we're not marching for him. No, we're not marching for him. We're not trying no protests on no radio. We're not saying that he just got saved, that he's a good kid. We need to again, this process needs to be honest. I know that people feel that African Americans and Hispanics are being brutalized every day, and I understand that. But there's some black and Hispanic young men who are doing some awful things out there, and we need to be honest about that. Thank you.
We address police brutality by putting those cowardly pigs in jail. You hear what I'm saying to you? Think about what happens in our community. Why hasn't there been an arrest of any single officer that shoots and kills our young people on the street? Let's talk about this with our state attorney's office. Why come every single shooting that happens like that ends with the closeout memo? After investigation, we've decided that no illegal activity was occurred. You got to be killing me. This guy was shot over 100 rounds by 7 different police officers, and he had not one weapon in his hand, and it's on tape. And you defend that? Give me a break. True. Give me a break. Let's follow the direction of some other different communities, like in North Carolina, when the young man was shot by a police officer when he was seeking help because he was in a car accident. They arrested him. That's me.
This is the last of our 3 audience questions, and we're somewhat revisiting the topic, but we're asking for a little more clarity on this one. So we're asking for clarity on code enforcement. Many businesses feel that they are being unfairly targeted, especially black businesses, with unnecessary fines. How does, if elected commissioner, how do you feel you'll be able to address the discrimination of these issues in government? And first one up,
that happens when you understand city government, when you know where to go, who to go to, and how to go to that person. Because there's some conversations that cannot be had directly with directors. I do need to state that. You cannot go to the police chief or to somebody and say, I need you to do that. You'll find yourself under investigation by the state attorney's office. But you know, that's the truth. You can go through the city manager and you hold the city manager accountable. There's a very technical and detailed process. It is not just cut and dry. So code enforcement, but again, I'm gonna go back to one of the strongest, I think that we don't realize, the strength is in you. You hold the strength. When you come down, when you put pressure on that commissioner, whoever that may be, God's willing it'll be me. Amen. But it's important, it's important to realize that you hold a lot of power. Former Commissioner J.O. Plummer said this years ago. He says, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That is why some of the neighborhoods in other parts sometimes are better than others, because they have come together to collectively fight against issues. Thank you.
You know,
We're gonna hug it out. We're gonna hug it out.
you know, I always believe that the best way to deal with issues like we're talking about right now in terms of businesses feeling that they are discriminated against and treated unfairly is that you really have good basic training on what it takes, what the process is, and what you have to do when you go in business in the city. And I think that a part of what has happened in the past is that that's not been true for many of the businesses that have gone in, you know, that have opened up businesses. So as a result, one of the things that I'm going to do is to have what I call days in the district, where I will be available to residents of the district in each of the net offices to talk to them, to talk to business owners, to talk to residents, to talk to neighborhood associations and neighborhood association presidents, because to me it's important when individuals who live in our district have a real relationship with the person that they put in office. Amen. So I'm saying that we will be proactive about this, and there will be real relationships with the commissioner, with me as commissioner, on what needs to be done and how you keep yourself out of any of the craziness. Because you know bureaucracies can make you lose your mind. Make you wanna holla. Thank you. Do I get that on the next question?
4 seconds.
So that's code enforcement.
I'm sorry, can I ask, this is my question. I just
Oh,
didn't answer my question. I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm being black, but that's fine. They're black businesses of mine, and I get this call too many times, just why I'm frustrated with it, because I keep sending them to folks who have no answer, so I'm asking these people here. Black businesses in Liberty City, Old Town, and Haiti continue to get oppressed by code enforcement to a degree far substantial above people who don't look like us. And then they say, hey kid, what do I do? And I say, call so-and-so. And they do, and they come back and say, I just got 8 more code enforcement. I got 10 more. I could close my business down and make more money. So I continue to send them back, and they continue to get more stuff. Meanwhile, back in the hood, all those folks that don't look like us, moving in, get no code enforcement when their grass is up here, and the rats coming in, and they sell the crap in the front, but they don't get a fine. So they call me and ask me, what do? I don't have the answer. I'm just a reporter. That's why I'm asking people to run for office.
And I guess this is why you're probably the best. And this is why Index card write this question down just enough. It does so much more to have folks come to the mic and ask this question because you give the backstory with it. So if it's okay with y'all, I'll give every candidate 30 seconds to really get to the nitty-gritty of the question to answer again, if that's okay with the audience. Yeah. 30 seconds? Huh? Yeah.
1 day.
So I'll give you 30, and then I'll keep you going with Dr. Malone, okay?
1 day. Count a day.
1 day? With the eyes held.
So move, right? So move.
One of the things that the district commissioner, I got 30 seconds, has to do is be able to fight for the district, the people in the district. And that can be done in various ways. When you find out that you're having problems, just like every other meeting, when Police Chief Exposito was brutalizing our young black men, every meeting I got an opportunity, I was on it. If you can't get any redress, then you put it before that person who's blocking and saying, and then you show proof that there is discriminatory practices. And if you keep doing that, but you need a fighter, you need somebody who's strong, you need somebody who's not afraid, and that person is Richard Dunn. You need somebody who they can't follow.
I'm also going to put this out there for the record, because Kevin is the only person that can do what he just did, so I don't want nobody else getting no idea. Just for the record.
You got a day, remember?
Like I said, the one thing, Kevin, and I hear what you're saying, the one thing that will happen once I'm elected is that, just like you talked about code enforcement and all of the things that happen, I will have someone in front, while I'm in the net office during those district days, that will be available to me to talk to me about what's going on and why this is happening. It won't be that they'll just keep getting fine after fine after fine. What they will have is an opportunity to talk with this commissioner and to let's figure out what we can do. But I still believe in being proactive. Proactive.
Listen, I agree with Reverend Dunn. I mean, there's a protocol to doing these kind of things. You have to go through the city manager. You have to spend time with the city manager every single day. You have to be a fighter every single day in their office, 9 a.m., 10 o'clock. Let the city manager know until this issue is resolved, you will continue to see me. Whether it has to do with code enforcement, whether it has to do with crime, whatever needs to happen, you will see my face, and I will be in your face, making sure that you address the issue. That's proper protocol. Initially, I guess when I was really naive, I thought you could be Superman or super commissioner and go out there and talk and cuss and fuss to the heads. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. You have to go through the proper protocol and address the issue. Thank you.
Is Brother Broadway in the building?
Right here, right here.
Brother Broadway is one of those people on 18th Avenue that get unfairly discriminated against. Not only does he get discriminated against, but they popularized it in the newspaper with a plethora of individuals walking as the citations are handed out. But when he gets his business cited, the person that's instructing to give those citations skips over a property that belongs to someone that's close to some people who have power in this community. Is that right, brother? Okay. So it starts with electing the right person into office. That's what it starts with. Because the discriminatory practices aren't because of the people who hate against us. It's our people hate against our people. So that's the first thing, right? And the second thing is this. Brother Broadway, you here?
Yeah.
Brother Broadway. The people in the community have to come together. And the people in those businesses, because you have what you could call a discriminatory lawsuit that you could file against the city of Miami. The city of Miami don't like paying lawsuits. Unfortunately, if I was commissioner, I can't be a part of that lawsuit, which is good, because I can encourage them to not be discriminatory in their practices. Right? That's what it's all about. We have to now let the people of this community know that if you are discriminatory, you will cost us money. Money that we need, that we can use to improve upon our community. Brother Broadway.
Yes, sir.
That's what a commissioner does when he understands business and he understands law. Thank you.
Watch out, kill!
There's one other component that I forgot to mention as it relates to code enforcement. There's a code enforcement board. And that code enforcement board can buy time for that business owner. Once that business owner is allowed an opportunity, you can you can stay the fines until he or she has had an opportunity to have a proper hearing. So there's procedures that one must take, but you have to fight, you have to fight, you have to stay in that person's face, and if you keep fighting, then just like, and I'm gonna say it again because I was there, I did it. That's why Chief Exposito is no longer the chief, and guess what? The shootings have stopped in our community. Let the church say amen.
Thank you, Rev. Thank you, Rev. We'll pass the collection plate around the bag. Anybody that want to give a donation? All right, so we're now moving to our last question, folks, and we want to hurry and move on for the sake of time. And this is a question I'm posing to the candidates here. I believe in a village approach to the community. I feel like we all have a part to do to ensure that District 5 is indeed the best district that it can be. And truth be told, I've had the opportunity to meet and speak to each and every one of these candidates at some point or another. And I have a great deal of respect for all of them. They all have something to offer to the table, bring to the table. And I would hope, elected or not, that we all will continue to push for a better District 5, working with whoever is elected next. So my last question, it was actually something that was inspired by Brother Lau Muhammad, who's in the back. Glad to see you walk in, sir. He posed this question in 2009 when there was 9 candidates on this panel. And the question is, if you had to vote for somebody else, besides yourself, if this election was today, who would that be and why? We got to work with. We're talking about the spirit of unity. Ain't no backing out of this question. If I have to call you up and repeat the question, we'll do so. But I want a straight answer. You can't repeat anything from next, bro. Let's be real about it. So I want genuine responses. We're all the same people here. We're here for the same reason. We love this community. Repeat the question. If you had to vote for someone else today, besides yourself, who would that person be and why? And I started with Reverend Dunn last time, so this is a minute response. It's a little faster now, and Ms. Carter, you're going to be up first.
Now this is a question. A totally loaded question. You know, I got into this race because I was asked to run by several prominent people and by several members of the community who really felt that the alternatives that they had at the time were not the best choices for this community. So I came in late, as many of you know, because they felt, and I did as well, that I'm the best candidate for this job. I have the background, I have the life experience, I can be trusted, I care so deeply for this community. As a daughter of Overtown and Liberty City. And if I had to make a choice.
Oh no, put that down. Just finish that question.
About the 3 men who are up here. I just don't know that I could truly vote equally, I mean, just on any one of them individually. I think I'd vote for Dr. Malone because of his passion. I vote for Keon because I think that he has so much to offer in the future. I'd vote for Reverend Dunn because his experience, although short, his experience. And so my question, my answer is that it's almost like I do a 30-30-30.
There's no politician.
Make a call, make a choice. We'll have to make a decision.
And so I think that if I had to make, since I do have to make that choice, But you know, see, I don't want this to be spun. I don't want this to be spun. You see what happens when you do this is, and Dr. Lyle, Brother Lyle, I love you. When I do, especially when you're first, when you do this is, you end up with your stuff being put on blast as Jackie endorses, and that ain't true.
Hypothetically speaking.
I don't do hypotheticals. I just don't.
Hypothetically speaking, ain't nobody.
I don't. I don't. But if I got to, I think I'd vote for you. I probably vote for Dr. Lewis. But don't you put this on your email about Jackie endorses. Because that ain't true, y'all.
Let me say real quick, I don't have enough money at all the other candidates, everybody at the other debate, everybody was going to raise 100,000 plus, so Ms. Collier, it will not happen that way. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you. Well, let me be honest, because I know I'm familiar with Mr. Collier and Reverend Dunn, but I have a good relationship with this gentleman right here, Attorney Hardiman. I met him at Florida A&M University, and I was really impressed with him to the point where I tried to persuade him to join another fraternity. I called him in my office and I said to him, I said, what do you think about Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, right? And he didn't think too highly of it. So I understand. I am passionate about young males. There's a young man back there that I had a conversation with in Miami Jackson with. Raise your hand, buddy. Right. I'm passionate about young black males. We should do all we can to save their lives.
Yes.
And I have to say, because I'm so proud of him, but I understand that when I ran my first election, I had to do work. I had to put in work. When I lost, I had to put in work. I had to get in the community and really learn about what's going on. And that's my only critique with Mr. Hardiman. But I have to say, I am so proud of who he is and what he has done with his life. Thank you.
What I appreciate about Dr. Malone speaking is that he understands the seriousness of this question. Because it's cute, right? Because we're talking about this. We want to know who we're going to vote for. But it's such a serious question because there may come a time where you have to actually choose between two people. Right?
That's right.
I may have to choose between two people. And you know, knowing everyone here, I mean, I met Ms. Collier last, so I'm going to know her briefly. However, if you've ever seen me interact with Reverend Dunn, you see that we have a very nice interactive relationship, I can describe it that way. Because I admire anyone that put in a lot of work in this community, right? And because I know that, for instance, my father committed a crime in the past, and he was, he's a better person now. I know people deserve chances in life that sometimes make them better, right? But when I thought about this question, initially, I remember up until maybe this past week, my vote probably would have went to Reverend Dunn. But what changed that for me is when I think about the level of, you got to talk this, yeah. Okay, when you think about the most important part about this community and how we have to control this money that's moving forward, right? All these $524 million, that amount of money. When I think about that, I think to myself, well, what do you do with the little money that you have? What type of responsibility do you have with that little bit of money? And even to this day, a financial report was due on September 27th, 2013. I'm sorry, that was the last reporting day. It was due on 10/4, and he didn't turn it in, and that's why he lost my vote, because it's still not in yet. What's going on? So, with that being said, I have to switch my vote to someone else, and I would definitely give it to somebody because somebody that I believe in, which is Dr. Malone. Why? Because he does believe in young black men. I see it firsthand. So when I think about somebody that has that same fire and desire to help this community and young black people in this community, it has to be him, right?
Well, you will find that that report will be stamped on October the 4th when it was due. And I want you to come back and apologize in front of everybody because if not, you're going to have mud on your face. So I just want to say that. I had to say that because it's the truth. But to answer the question, I believe, I really believe that the person sitting out here who's been in this community, constantly in this community, I would have to say, I'm gonna go with Dr. Robert Malone. Because while I admire and respect Keon Hardeman, pardon me, Attorney Keon Hardeman, he doesn't have any hours. You know, when you go to college, they say you gotta have hours. He doesn't have any experience. Anybody can talk about what they want to do, but until you sat in that seat, you don't know. Thank you very much.
Well, that was definitely interesting. I think that was a good way to close it out, right? It was nice. Well, I mean, first things first, let's just give every candidate up here a round of applause. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here this evening as well. With that said, we'll wrap it up. We have two closing announcements from the majority.